Hello and welcome to Starbound's second channel. My name is Gabriel the Bibi Capaldi and I'll be your narrator today. But before we get into today's story, please do check down below that you are subscribed to the channel. It's 100% free and helps us pop up on your feed a bit more often. It's of my understanding that you have replaced all the zookeeper machines for living humans, Director. I've been told you even keep them inside the biomes with the predators. Can you explain yourself, Vector? Demanded Zoxnir, the royal inspector. Vector swallowed hard, his purple eyes widening as his mind struggled to articulate a convincing explanation of his decision to get rid of the zookeeper machines and replace them with living humans. He momentarily averted his gaze toward the parked ships in the hangar, just so that he had a moment where he could pretend his more recent changes in the administration of the Royal Zoo hadn't attracted the attention of the Queen herself, who had sent an inspector to scrutinize his recent actions. The hangar was made of metal, the royal ships bearing the insignia of the Usari monarchy, each parked under a bright spotlight. The bright lighting crossed straight through Vector's pale, translucent skin, highlighting the delicate network of veins that throbbed beneath his thin epidermis. His five-fingered hands trembled as he adjusted the collar of the director's uniform, the blue fabric contrasting sharply with his fearful complexion. The ceremonial medallion that marked his position was visible on his neck, growing heavier with each passing moment under the inspector's gaze. The seconds stretched into what felt like light years as Vector's anxiety mounted. When his eyes finally returned to the inspector, he could see that nothing at all had changed in Zoxnir's ice-cold composure. The sharp purple eyes, the transparent skin with a single red vein pulsing under his left nostril, and even the heart rate, visible through his transparent neck, a characteristic unique to their species, all remained as steady and unwavering as before. Finally, recognizing that he eventually would have to say something, Vector took control of his trembling lips and offered an explanation. The decision to hire humans as zookeepers was primarily financial, Inspector Zoxnir, he began, his voice steadier than he had expected. By replacing the keeper machines with humans, we've reduced operational costs by nearly 40%. The maintenance of the drones was becoming increasingly expensive, and their replacement parts had to be imported from the central systems at great expense. Humans, on the other hand, require only basic accommodations and sustenance. He paused, flexing his 5 digits nervously before continuing. But more importantly, the animals are healthier and happier now that the humans are taking care of them. Their reproduction rates have increased, aggressive behaviors have decreased, and overall, the exhibits have never been more successful. The Queen herself commented on the improved conditions of the Triaxian wolf pack during her last visit, though I don't believe I mentioned the management changes at that time. Zoxnir crossed his arms over his royal inspector's robes, but changed the position of his left arm slightly to the side, a deliberate action to keep his royal emblem in Vector's line of sight. I find it difficult to believe that any species, no matter how primitive, would work for less than machines that don't even need to eat, he said, his voice as rispid as his posture. And I certainly don't believe that humans could be good at taking care of anything. Their species' reputation tells me that they excel at fighting and solving problems through brute force, not at providing care for others. Their history is picture of destruction, not nurturing. Even the archives in the Great Library document 17 separate conflicts within their own planetary system in just the last century. Vector felt a bead of moisture form at his temple, the Usari equivalent of sweat. His hand instinctively moved to wipe it away before the inspector could notice. As absurd as it may seem, Inspector, the humans have proven to be exceptional caregivers to the animals. They possess an intuitive understanding of living creatures that our most sophisticated machines just couldn't replicate. They sense subtle changes in behavior that indicate distress or illness before our equipment can detect any measurable difference. Vector was still struggling to articulate his defense, but suddenly an idea struck him. His slender fingers interlaced as he leaned forward with a fleeting wave of confidence. Maybe words aren't sufficient. If you're willing, I could show you everything, take you to the biome enclosures so you can witness this new approach firsthand. Seeing is believing, after all, and I believe that once you observe the humans in action, you'll understand why my decision serves the Queen's interests and upholds the standards of excellence she expects from her royal zoo. Very well, Zoxnir replied with a slight incline of his head. I suppose I can tolerate observing captive animals and human workers for duty's sake. His tone made it clear that this was not a concession, but a continuation of his investigation. My team will document everything we observe. Be aware that any discrepancies between your claims and our findings will be noted with particular emphasis. Vector nodded, relief washing over him at having bought more time. He gestured toward the exit of the hangar, leading the way as Zoxnir and his guards followed like silent ghosts, their movements fluid and synchronized in a way that made them seem more like a single organism than individual beings. Their footsteps echoed in perfect harmony down the long corridor that connected the hangar to the main facility, and occasionally one of the inspector's assistants would raise a 5-digited hand to capture an image or something that caught their interest, the subtle sound of their recording devices punctuating the silence. The corridor opened into a vast central hub, where various pathways branched toward different sections of the zoo. A few off-duty staff members, all Usari, quickly averted their eyes when they noticed the royal insignia on Zoxnir's robe, hurrying to appear busy or simply ducking into adjacent hallways to avoid scrutiny. As they reached the far end of the hub, Vector motioned towards a sleek, hovering vehicle designed for zoo tours. Its elongated form resembled an aquatic creature, with a transparent canopy that offered panoramic views and comfortable seating for up to 10 passengers. The zoo spans over 500 kilometers, he explained, his 5 fingers already reaching for the activation panel. This will allow us to cover more ground quickly. I suggest we begin with the predator enclosure. I believe it will provide the most compelling evidence of the human's effectiveness. Without waiting for a response, Zoxnir and his 4 guards boarded the vehicle, arranging themselves in rows. Their weapons, slender rods that could extend into formidable energy staves at a moment's notice, remained secured at their sides, but their positioning made it clear they would be deployed instantly if needed. I hope that what you'll see today will be sufficient to satisfy your inquiries, Inspector, he said, steering the transport out of the docking bay and onto the broad pathway that wound through the administrative section of the zoo. The journey to the predator enclosure took several long minutes, filled with awkward silence. Vector attempted small talk about the weather systems in the various biomes, yet Zoxnir merely responded with non-committal grunts, his attention seemingly focused on the screens of his personal data device, where he occasionally made notes with quick taps of his transparent hand. At last, they arrived at the massive transparent wall of the predator enclosure. The barrier, nearly 30 meters high and constructed of a material as strong as diamond, separated the visitors from the recreated alien ecosystem within. A handful of Usari families were already gathered along the observation area, their children pressed against the glass, pointing and capturing images with their recording devices. Parents stood back, their hands gently resting on their offspring's shoulders, occasionally leaning down to explain some aspect of the habitat or creature within. Before Vector could bring the vehicle to a complete stop, Zoxnir and his team had already disembarked, moving with unexpected eagerness toward the transparent barrier. They leaned forward, their faces inches from the impenetrable wall, their purple eyes scanning the landscape beyond. Vector hurried to join them, maneuvering past a small group of school-aged Usari. He was anxious that without proper context the inspector might form a negative impression. The contained biome stretched so far that the ceiling vanished into an artificial horizon, creating the perfect illusion of an alien world. Rust-colored vegetation dotted the rocky terrain, with tall, spiraling formations resembling Earth's stalagmites rising from the ground at irregular intervals. A purple-hued river snaked through the landscape, its banks teeming with smaller creatures that served as prey for the enclosure's main inhabitants. Vector followed Zoxnir's gaze and immediately identified what had captured the inspector's attention. Soaring above one of the rock formations was a merlar, a majestic predator standing over 3 meters tall when at rest. With a wingspan of nearly 8 meters, its leathery red wings moved, creating waves of crimson with each powerful stroke. The creature's elongated head featured 6 eyes on each side, offering a 360-degree field of vision. Its body tapered to a spiked tail that served both as a weapon and a rudder during flight. Before the humans were introduced, Vector explained, pointing at the magnificent creature with an outstretched finger. We lost at least 1 drone every 3 days to the Merlars. They're from Kelvaris, a high-gravity world with extreme atmospheric conditions. No machine we designed could manage them without causing harm. The drones were either destroyed by the Merlars or forced to employ restraint measures that caused the creatures physical and psychological distress. We tried 17 different drone models over a period of 5 years, each more sophisticated than the last, and still couldn't resolve the issues. I assume you're about to tell me how humans solved this problem for you? Zoxnir said, his tone dripping with skepticism. He tapped his data device, and one of his assistants immediately moved to a better position to capture imagery of the Merlar in flight. Vector hated the tone and having his intentions read so transparently, but he swallowed his anger and spoke as evenly as he could. Yes, the humans found a solution where our technology failed, he confirmed, directing the inspector's attention to a figure moving across the rocky terrain below. A human, small against the background of the massive landscape, walked confidently beside a grounded Merlar, guiding it with what appeared to be nothing more than a thin, almost fragile-looking leash. The human's specialized suit couldn't hide the casual way with which they moved alongside the potentially lethal predator. Occasionally, the human's hand would reach up to stroke the creature's neck in a gesture that seemed almost affectionate. What you're witnessing is revolutionary, Vector continued, unable to keep a note of pride from his voice. The humans have established flying competitions for the Merlars. Both species enjoy these events tremendously. Previously, the Merlars were chronically bored, despite how many kilometers we expanded their habitat. They fought among themselves, often inflicting serious injuries. Now, the humans ensure they're never understimulated. They've created obstacle courses, hunting simulations, and even social activities that stimulate the Merlar's competitive behaviors. He tapped a control on his wrist device, bringing up an array of charts and graphs. The reproductive rates of the Merlars has reached parity with their native world populations. There's no greater proof that the humans have made them genuinely happy. We've documented a 70% decrease in aggressive incidents between specimens and a great increase in natural mating behaviors. The inspector stepped back from the glass, turning to stare directly into Vector's eyes. These humans must be astronomically expensive, he said, his fingers drumming against his data device. Any intelligent species would charge a premium to put themselves in such danger. Are you diverting funds from other areas of the zoo's operations? Perhaps neglecting less visible aspects of maintenance or care? The Queen would be most displeased to learn her royal zoo was being mismanaged financially, especially after the last budget increase she personally approved on your recommendation. Vector opened his mouth to respond, but found himself suddenly at a loss for words. How could he explain the peculiar arrangement he had with the humans without making it sound suspicious? The truth was so bizarre that even he sometimes questioned whether he fully understood it. As he struggled to articulate a reply, his fingers fidgeting nervously with the edge of his uniform, A movement from the other side of the transparent wall caught everyone's attention. A human astride a Merla soared past, mere meters from the barrier, the creature's wings creating a whooshing sound that was audible even through the thick divider. The Merla executed a complex aerial maneuver, spinning in a tight spiral before leveling out and gliding parallel to the observation area. The human rider leaned close to the predator's neck, one hand on the specialized harness, the other extended outward for balance. Both human and Merla seemed to be moving as a single entity, their movements synchronized in a way that no machine could have achieved. Several visitors gasped and applauded at this impressive sight. The unexpected performance bought Vector precious seconds to collect his thoughts. The financial arrangement is actually the most remarkable aspect. He finally begun his explanation. The humans mostly agree to work for free. They have sponsors from their own species, and they've developed what they refer to as a new sport. I must admit that I don't fully understand all the intricacies of their social and economic structures. I prefer not to micromanage once I've found effective solutions. His fingers spread in a gesture that conveyed both pride and a touch of humility. What matters is that humans and animals are happy together. We provide medical assistance when accidents occur, which is rare but inevitable when working with predators of this size. That minimal expense has been sufficient to avoid any complications. In fact, our medical costs have decreased by 12% since implementing this system, as humans are far more effective at preventing injuries than our previous automated solutions were. The inspector stared at him for what felt like an eternity, his expression unreadable behind the cultural mask of Usari formal interactions. His hands were clasped behind his back, a posture that signaled deep contemplation in their species. "So what you're telling me," Zoxnir finally said, his voice soft but dangerous, "is that you don't understand your own operation. You've allowed an alien species to essentially take control of a significant portion of the royal zoo without comprehending their motivations or methods. From where I stand, Director, it appears you are either incompetent or deliberately obscuring something. Neither reflects well on your ability to run this institution." He straightened his robe, the royal emblem flashing once more as he adjusted it with quick movements of his 5 digits. "Show me more, and I suggest you prepare a better explanation of how this arrangement functions, or I will have no choice but to include your apparent incompetence in my report to Her Majesty. The Queen does not appreciate being kept in the dark about operations conducted in her name." The threat hovered in the air like a toxic cloud as Vector led the group back to the transport vehicle, his heart beat rapidly in his chest, a duet of anxiety that threatened to overwhelm him. His 5 fingers trembled slightly as he activated the vehicle's systems, but he forced himself to appear composed. "The next biome houses the animal species from the Myriadian system," he said, injecting confidence into his voice despite his inner turmoil. "There, the humans have developed an entirely different approach that has resulted in significant improvements to the creature's happiness. I believe it will provide a clearer picture of the overall benefits of our new management system." As the vehicle glided away from the predator enclosure, Vector's mind raced, searching for a way to satisfy the inspector's demands. He genuinely worried about the well-being of the human employees who had found purpose and joy in their work here, and about the animals that had thrived under their care. Most of all, he worried about his own position, not merely out of self-interest, but because he knew whoever replaced him would likely dismantle everything he had built, returning to the cold, inefficient methods that had caused so much suffering before. As their journey continued, he concluded that the fate of his zoo, and perhaps the unique interspecies relationship he had fostered, now rested on his ability to convince a royal bureaucrat that humans were more than the violent, primitive species the Usari believed them to be. As they approached the new biome, Vector took a deep breath, steadying himself for what might be the most important presentation of his career. His fingers gripped the controls tightly, drawing strength from the knowledge that what he had created here was worth fighting for, no matter how difficult the battle ahead might prove to be. The vehicle slowed as it approached the next biome. Unlike the rocky landscape of the predator enclosure, this habitat was a vast green field that stretched toward a distant tree line. Soft, emerald grasses swayed gently in the artificial breeze, punctuated by scattered rocks of various sizes that provided shelter and shade. Several small puddles dotted the landscape, their surfaces disturbed by the movement of tiny furred creatures. The transparent barrier separating visitors from this pastoral scene appeared noticeably thinner than the formidable wall of the predator enclosure. Before Vector could bring the vehicle to a complete stop, Zoxnir and his guards had already disembarked, repeating their earlier behavior. However, this time they maintained their distance from the transparent wall, standing several meters back and observing the scene with what appeared to be a mixture of confusion and disdain. Their posture had changed, becoming more rigid, and Vector noticed one of the guards whispering something to another while pointing toward the enclosure. Vector approached cautiously, sensing the shift in mood. As he drew closer, Zoxnir's voice cut through the air like a knife. "What is the meaning of this?" the inspector demanded, his voice rising to a pitch Vector hadn't heard before. "Director, explain yourself immediately." Startled by the outburst, Vector quickly turned his attention to the interior of the biome, searching for whatever had provoked such a reaction. What he saw was a scene he had witnessed countless times before, but now viewed through the critical eyes of the inspector. Inside the enclosure, a group of exars, fluffy, multicolored herbivores resembling a cross between earth sheep and large rabbits, were being herded across the field. But what had clearly upset the inspector wasn't the exars themselves, but rather what was guiding them. A sleek, four-legged predator with pointed ears and an alert expression that Vector recognized as what humans called a dog. The canine moved around the perimeter of the exar group, occasionally darting forward to redirect a stray, but never showing aggression beyond what was needed to keep the herd together. This is our innovative herding solution, Vector explained, his voice trembling under Zoxnir's glare. The creatures the humans call dogs have proven effective at guiding our herbivore populations. The exars respond much better to them than they ever did to our mechanical herders. He gestured towards the scene, where a human handler stood at the far edge of the field, occasionally whistling or calling out commands to the dog, which responded promptly. "You see, the machines we used previously would frighten the exars. Since introducing the dogs, we've seen a significant improvement in overall, herd health." Zoxnir's face contorted with what could only be described as outrage. "You've introduced predators into an enclosure with royal herbivores? Are you completely mad?" He jabbed a finger toward the glass. "These exars are among the Queen's favorite species. Their fur is used in royal ceremonial garments, and you've placed them at the mercy of Earth carnivores. This arrangement isn't just stupid, Director. It's actively dangerous to your own neck." The inspector began pacing, his fingers clenching and unclenching. "First, these dogs could attack and kill the exars at any moment. Second, even if they don't, the constant presence of predators will create chronic stress in the herd. Third, there's a significant risk of disease transmission between Earth fauna and our native species. And lastly—" He stopped pacing to stare directly at Vector. "You've made these decisions without proper authorization or documentation, placing royal assets at unnecessary risk." Vector raised his hands placatingly. "I assure you, Inspector, the dogs have never killed any of our animals." He took a deep breath. The results speak for themselves. The XR population has thrived under this new management system. I've heard quite enough. Zoxnir cut him off sharply. I don't need further explanation of your reckless decisions. I've seen sufficient evidence to complete my report to Her Majesty. He turned to his guards. Document this arrangement in detail. I want footage of Earth predators interacting with royal property. The words hit Vector like a physical blow. If Zoxnir submitted his report now, everything he had built would be dismantled. The humans would be removed, the animals would suffer under the return of mechanical management, and he would almost certainly lose his position, perhaps even face criminal charges for mismanagement of royal assets. But perhaps there was still one chance. Vector's mind raced through the biomes of the zoo, searching for one that might yet sway the inspector's opinion. The aquatic habitat? No, it also used Earth fauna in its maintenance. The desert biome? Too similar to what they'd already seen. Then it came to him. The forest sanctuary, where humans had resolved a serious ecological problem that had plagued the zoo for years. Inspector Zoxnir, Vector said, I respectfully request that you view one more habitat before finalizing your report. He lowered his head slightly, a gesture of deference that went against every instinct of pride he possessed. Zoxnir regarded him coldly, his transparent skin revealing the steady, unhurried beating of his heart, a contrast to the rapid pulses visible beneath Vector's own epidermis. After what felt like an eternity, the inspector gave a curt nod. One more habitat, he said, his voice dripping with condescension. Though I doubt it will change my assessment. Relief washed over Vector despite the insult. Thank you, Inspector. The forest biome is quite close, just beyond the next intersection. They returned to the vehicle, the silence now heavy with tension rather than merely awkward. The journey to the forest biome took less than 5 minutes, but to Vector it felt interminable. No matter what he showed the inspector, he realized it might not be enough. Numbers improvement reports wouldn't sway someone who had already decided that human involvement was inherently problematic. Still, he had to try. As they approached the viewing area for the forest biome, Zoxnir remained seated. Drive closer to the barrier, he ordered. I see no reason to exert myself for what is likely another disappointment. Vector bit back a retort and did as instructed, maneuvering the vehicle alongside the transparent wall. This biome was quite different from the others they had visited, a dense forest of towering trees with bioluminescent leaves that cast an ethereal faint green glow over the understory. Along the wall, several information displays provided different perspectives on the massive ecosystem. One screen showed drone footage from above the canopy, revealing the true scale of the forest. Currently, the feed displayed a clearing where a group of humans was visible, each carrying what were unmistakably projectile weapons. The humans were arranged in a semicircle, methodically firing into a dense herd of small, six-legged creatures that moved like a single organism across the forest floor. "Stop this vehicle at once!" Zoxnir screamed, his composure finally shattering completely. He lunged toward the display screen, his finger stabbing at the image of the humans with their weapons. "This is precisely what I expected! You've allowed humans to slaughter animals belonging to Her Majesty! All your talk of care and improvement was nothing but a smokescreen to hide this barbarism!" The inspector's face had flushed to a deep purple. "These animals are royal property, and you've given aliens permission to hunt them for sport? Are you crazy?" Vector was flabbergasted. He had expected skepticism about this particular solution, but not this level of fury. He rushed to explain before the situation deteriorated further. "Inspector, please, what you're seeing is an ecological intervention, not slaughter for sport," he said hurriedly. Those creatures are Velix beetles, an invasive species accidentally introduced in the forest biome during the previous administration. They reproduce exponentially and devastate native flora, threatening the entire ecosystem. Before the humans offered their assistance, we were forced to deploy military-grade drones to cull the population, at enormous expense that we have now eliminated. Zoxnir was not placated. So now you admit to having an infestation in a royal biome, and your solution was to invite armed humans to shoot indiscriminately within a controlled environment? What about the risk to other species? What about the integrity of the habitat itself? Each question came faster than the last, leaving Vector no opportunity to respond. And I suppose these humans are also working for free, the inspector continued sarcastically. Out of their famous generosity and love for alien ecosystems, you expect me to believe they receive no compensation for this convenient service? Vector knew that nothing he could say would salvage the situation, but he tried nonetheless. The human hunters work only for the meat and hides of the beetles, which they consider delicacies and valuable materials, he explained, knowing how strange it would sound. They actually compete for the opportunity to participate in these culling operations. We save millions of credits annually by not purchasing military drones, while achieving better results with less collateral damage to the ecosystem. The inspector's face had moved beyond purple to an alarming shade of violet. "That's it. This inspection is concluded," he snapped. "Director Vector, consider yourself relieved of duty pending the Queen's review of my report. I've seen more than enough to recommend immediate termination of your employment and a complete reversal of these reckless policies." Before Vector could respond, Zoxnir had activated the vehicle's engine. "We're taking this transport back to our ship. You can request another vehicle from your soon-to-be former staff." With that, the inspector and his guards sped away, pushing Vector aside, leaving him standing alone beside the forest biome viewing area. For several long moments, Vector simply stood there, then slowly moved to a quiet corner away from the handful of visitors who had witnessed the confrontation. He leaned his head against the cool surface of the wall, not crying. Usari physiology didn't allow for tears, but taking time to process the certainty that he would lose his position. After all his work, all the improvements, all the care he had put into making this zoo a place where both animals and their caretakers could enjoy, it would all be undone by someone who couldn't see past their prejudice against humans. A gentle pressure on his shoulder startled him from his thought. When he turned, he found himself face to face with a group of human hunters, still carrying their weapons, who had apparently noticed his distress from within the biome and come to the barrier to check on him. The one Vector knew personally, Derek, a veteran hunter with a scarred face and kind eyes, stood at the front of the group. "You okay, Director?" he asked, his voice slightly muffled by the communication system built into the wall. "We saw that official-looking fellow storming off with your ride. Didn't look like a friendly chat?" Vector was about to offer a reassuring lie, to maintain the professional distance he had always kept with the human workers, but looking at their genuine concern, he realized there was no point in pretending. The truth would be evident soon enough when they were all replaced by machines. Instead, he poured out the whole story: the surprise inspection, the inspector's prejudice, the misunderstanding about their hunting activities, and the certainty that the Queen would follow Zoxnir's recommendation to terminate the human management program. He explained how he had been treated with contempt, despite the demonstrable improvements in animal welfare and operational costs, and how everything they had built together was now threatened. The humans exchanged glances, muttering among themselves. "That's a raw deal, Director," said one woman, shaking her head. "After all you've done for this place?" "The animals were miserable before you brought us in," added another. "Those Merlians were tearing each other apart out of boredom." And the breeding programs were failing badly, a third hunter chimed in. Derek had remained quiet during this exchange, his weathered face thoughtful. Finally, he spoke. You know, Director, I think there might be a solution to your problem. Vector straightened up, his attention fully captured. He had witnessed enough human problem-solving methods over the past 3 years to recognize the look in his eyes. What do you mean? A slow smile spread across Derek's face. Well, you might not be aware of just how much money is involved in this Merla racing circuit these days. Both the Syndicate and the Free Orbit Pirates have been betting big on those riders. We're talking billions of credits changing hands during major competitions. He placed his hand against the barrier, 5 fingers spread wide, mirroring where Vector's own hand might rest on the other side. What do you think might happen if someone accidentally informed them that some stuck-up inspector was about to shut down their favorite gambling opportunity with a report to the Queen? Vector took a moment to process what the human was suggesting. The implications slowly crystallized in his mind, but remarkably, his first concern wasn't the morality of the intervention. I don't have any means to contact those particular human factions, he said hesitantly. Derek smiled wide. All we need is a yes from you, Director. Let's just say some of your friends might mistakenly send a few messages to the right people. Nothing too specific. You understand. Just sharing some business information. Vector stood silently, weighing his options. On one hand, he was contemplating an intervention that would likely involve intimidation of a royal official, or perhaps worse. On the other hand, everything he had built, everything that benefited both the animals and the humans who cared for them, would be destroyed if he did nothing. The faces of the human hunters watched him expectantly, neither pressuring nor judging, simply waiting for his decision. In the end, he did what he always did when humans offered to solve a problem in their own unique way. He gave the same response that had served him well for all those years, through challenges that had once seemed insurmountable. As long as no animal is harmed and no human is killed, Vector said slowly, you are free to solve the problem as you see fit. Got it, Derek replied with a nod, exchanging glances with his companions. We'll leave you to collect yourself, Director. Don't worry too much, all right? As the humans moved away, back toward the depths of the forest biome, Vector remained by the barrier, contemplating everything he had learned during his time working with Earth's most unpredictable species. The Usari had always believed that control and predictability were the hallmarks of effective management, but humans had taught him a different truth, that effective solutions flourished in freedom, that trust often yielded better results than surveillance, and that sometimes the best solution wasn't the one you designed, but the one you allowed to happen, and that, occasionally, not knowing how the problem was solved was itself the best solution.